Rachel and I were able to complete our field observation at KinderCare in Centerville with pre-kindergartners and also at Highland Elementary School in a kindergarten classroom. We completed 12 and a half hours under Miss Sarah Gossu at KinderCare and 12 hours under Miss Emily Burkholder at Highland. While we were at Highland, our cooperating teacher set up an opportunity for us to go upstairs into the school's emotional learning support classroom, where we were able to learn more about students with a number of emotional, social, physical, and intellectual needs. At Highland, we arrived early each morning, so getting a picture of the classroom was easy. However, at KinderCare, we never had the opportunity to be in a classroom without any children, so we needed to use a picture from the internet. At KinderCare, we were in a classroom with 15 students and 2 teachers. There were 10 boys and 5 girls in this particular class. I think that the diversity within the classroom represented Lancaster City's population as a whole very well. There were 4 African American students, 4 Hispanic students, an Asian student, and 5 Caucasian students. This culturally and linguistically diverse classroom setting was a very safe place for all of the students. There was even a diversity corner where the students could bring in items to share with the class relating to their background. There was one student in the class who had a speech impairment, and he went to another classroom for 30 minutes each day to work on speech skills to help him. These students were all 4 and 5 years old, the typical pre-kindergarten age. At Highland Elementary, there were 21 students in the classroom with 1 teacher, and the teacher had teacher aides come in throughout the day. There were 9 boys and 12 girls in the class. We had the opportunity to ask the teacher a few questions about students with any special needs in her classroom, and she explained the emotional learning support classroom to us. She said she has 3 students with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD, 1 student with an emotional behavioral disorder, or EBD, and 1 student with giftedness. There was not much diversity in this classroom, just 2 Hispanic students, and all of the other 19 students were Caucasian. These kindergartners were all ages 5 and 6. In the emotional learning support classroom that we were able to observe in, there were 6 boys and they each had 1 teacher. So there were 6 students and 6 teachers in 1 classroom, and these boys were all grades kindergarten through 4th. In the emotional support classroom, we came across an exercise ball, which we agreed seemed like a typical tool used in these settings. However, we came across a green bubble on top of a student's chair. The teacher explained to us that this item is used similarly to the students who use the exercise ball. The boy who used the bounce seat had autism and mild ADHD, which caused him to move around a lot, yet he didn't quite have the motor skills to keep himself up on the exercise ball. The head teacher called this tool a bounce seat. In the text, we learned about ADHD as well as autism, so finding out that this student had trouble staying still was no surprise. Rachel and I had previous knowledge about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder from Chapter 8 of our textbook, and we also had knowledge about autism from Chapter 10. The kickback was simply an elastic exercise band tied around the bottom of each chair. The chairs all had one because it served a number of useful purposes. The 2 main purposes being that if a student becomes frustrated, instead of kicking forward or pounding on the desk, the student may kick backwards and fight the tension on the band as they release their anger in a safe way. Another purpose that this served was if the students could not stop swinging their legs forward during instruction, they may be asked to keep their feet behind the kick band to avoid kicking others or distracting others. This tool was most likely used by the students with an emotional or behavioral disorder. The sitting pool was mainly for a student with autism. He needed comforting often throughout the day, and being in a confined area where he could layer in blankets and loveys that he wanted to snuggle with was very beneficial for him. If other students needed to calm down, they were allowed to sit in the pool. This was not a timeout, but rather a safe zone for the kids to regain their comfort and calm down. Loveys are stuffed animals brought in by the students as well as the teachers, and they were all over the room. The students were allowed to have loveys at their seat or even carry them with them while walking around and doing something. The loveys were a comfort tool used to soothe the students in the class. Students who used this the most were either on the autism spectrum, which you can learn more about in Chapter 10, or students that had an emotional or behavioral disorder, which you can learn more about in Chapter 9. The letter cards were prepared by the head teacher in the morning before beginning the day. This helpful tool was used for a student who was having a lot of trouble with writing. He couldn't get the hang of controlling himself long enough to make letters, so he practiced tracing over the raised letters with his finger. This student had a lot of uncontrollable movements due to his cerebral palsy, so using his finger was much easier than holding a pencil. I believe that this is a tool that could be very beneficial to students in general education classrooms who are learning to write. When kindergartners are learning to make letters, something like this could be really helpful for the muscle memory. This tool was used for a student with a physical disability, which we are learning about in Chapter 14. In continuation, this tool was used for the same student with a physical disability. Pencil grippers are another item you may often find in a general education classroom. However, they were necessary for the success of one student in the emotional learning support classroom. This student is the same student who needed to practice tracing letters with his finger. The thick, triangular shape of the gripper made it much easier for the student to hold on to a pencil rather than a slick, circular pencil. While the head teacher was explaining to us the many tools she uses to help this young boy succeed, she said, his sometimes jerky movements would cause him to drop a slick, circular pencil, so thick, triangular grippers have helped him a lot.
In the classroom, we also observed a star chart, or rewards chart. The reward chart is used as a tool in the emotional learning support classroom to help the students stay on task, and they are given the opportunity to earn a reward in the end that they have been working towards. The student was told if he earned his star for his section, he would be allowed to go to the water fountain and get a drink. According to an article on supernanny.com, it'll give him or her the incentive he needs to cooperate if he gets an immediate reward in the form of points. Another thing we had observed in the classroom was the morning checklist or the to-do list. This list will help out with the structure and order of the classroom and help the morning run smoothly. These lists can also be used in a general education classroom, but is essential for the emotional learning support classroom for the students to begin their day. According to teachthought.com, checklists help students feel in control and hold them accountable by removing obstacles to success, such as, I didn't know we were supposed to do that, or I forgot to do that part. Checklists keep students on task, rather than losing focus and forgetting where they left off or abandoning their tasks altogether. They always know where they are in a task or project. One last thing we observed in the emotional learning support classroom was a how to sit chart. This chart was simply hung up in the classroom to show kids what the right way to sit looked like. A chart like this is essential to have in the learning support classroom because some kids might not be able to remember how to sit properly. In this classroom, even things such as not sitting in a chair the right way can modify the way they learn and even cause a large distraction to the student or the class. In a study conducted by Tim Springer, founder of the Human Environmental Research Organization, he found that even when we sit still, our bodies are constantly moving. Sitting involves large and small motions. Maintaining balance and slight position change involves micro motions. Larger macro motions involve moving our arms and legs in our chair. Both motions are essential for our well-being while learning. Therefore, the way the student is sitting in the chair highly affects the way they will learn and concentrate.